Hey everyone, and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with another update coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got a very big lineup of news to share with all of you today. Today's date is September 30th, 2025, and it's Tuesday. Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and I hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Can't believe tomorrow's going to be October 1st already. Hope you guys are ready for Halloween. Lots of big news to cover with this war update. We'll start out with a huge story out of NATO today, as we're hearing that NATO is very serious about closing the skies over western Ukraine to help shoot down incoming Russian drones and missiles. Let's talk about this new report here on your screen. NATO is planning to deploy an air defense shield over western Ukraine. European officials and the military are discussing the possibility of deploying air defense systems and creating a no-fly zone over western Ukraine with the prospect of extending this zone to Kyiv. So very big news today. We actually heard this report probably about a week or two ago. If you guys remember, I did cover this story that NATO was thinking about doing this. Apparently, they're going to be discussing this tomorrow at Copenhagen inside of Denmark. There's going to be a major EU summit ongoing over the next few days throughout this week, and reportedly they're going to be talking about that. So clearly, the Europe is very serious about closing the skies over western Ukraine, and again, they're apparently planning to extend this zone all the way to Kyiv, the capital. So that's very big news. We'll talk more about that story here in just a moment. We also have some other big headline news today. Ukraine struck Russian targets overnight. A radar of a Russian S-400 air defense system in Crimea was attacked. Also, a fuel depot was hit in Russia's Ver region near Moscow. We also have reports that the Russians are claiming that Ukraine is once again preparing provocation onto NATO, this time being Poland, saying Ukraine is preparing an attack on critical infrastructure to most likely blame on Russia. We'll be talking about that story as well. And also, towards the end of this video, we'll be discussing the high-level military meeting that was convened by the Pentagon and hundreds of military generals and admirals in Quantico, Virginia today. We've been discussing that over the last few days. I'll give you guys some updates coming out from that meeting. And don't be alarmed, nothing major came from this meeting for the most part, but we will discuss some of the things that were spoken about during that meeting, okay? So let's jump right into this. Let's hop on over to X with Max25. NATO is planning to deploy an air defense system over western Ukraine to intercept Russian missiles and UAVs, with the potential for further deployment to Kyiv, the Telegraph reports. The proposal was put forward by a group of high-ranking Western politicians and military officials. European leaders will discuss the issue tomorrow in Copenhagen. So, yeah, the Telegraph was reporting this today. It says Ukraine's integrated air protection zone. So this is kind of the idea that they have with this. This green area is going to be the area of Ukraine that they actually want to extend this coverage to. Apparently, it's going to be more on the western side over here. Eventually, they will extend it further into Ukraine, covering also the capital and a region of Kyiv. Okay, so very big news, and we'll see if NATO actually moves forward with this. We also have been hearing that Russia is not very happy with NATO troops being inside of Ukraine. So I'm not sure if this would be something NATO would deploy into Ukraine, just kind of give these air defense systems over to Ukraine and let their troops operate these. Or are we talking about having actual NATO troops on the ground inside of Ukraine? We'll have to see what the full details are going to be, but this was a map coming out kind of showing what they're talking about and what their plans are to provide this air defense shield. And we know a lot of this has to do with what happened to Poland just a couple weeks back also, and then all these other nations with their airspace being violated. They don't want these Russian drones attacking into NATO anymore, and this would obviously help out a lot if these drones flying through Ukraine happen to fly into Poland again. They'd be able to intercept these with air defense systems with this shield. So very big news today. Now drone bomber. Approximate flight routes of our UAVs. Red arrow indicates directions of strike UAVs. All route information is based on Russian sources. So here's the map kind of showing the trajectory of drones going into Russia overnight. You can see a massive attack through the Rostov Oblast right here. Also towards Volgograd. I'm not sure exactly what Ukraine was going after over here. Actually, not too many reports of strikes inside of Ukraine, or excuse me, inside of Russia in general. All we really have today is down here in Crimea, reports of an S-400 radar system that was reportedly hit. And then also up here in the Ver Oblast on the northern side, we have reports of a fuel depot that was attacked. So aside from that, not too much information or reports coming out showing major hits over here in these areas where these drones were headed. Now, Special Kursan Cat, Ukraine's Special Operation Forces claim they struck the radar of an Russian S-400 Triumph air defense system in occupied Crimea on the night of September 30th. Okay, so that would have been last night. Allegedly, we had a Russian radar for the S-400 Triumph air defense system that was reportedly hit down in Crimea. So that's very big news because we've been continuing to hear this for weeks now, that Ukraine is striking a lot of radars and radar towers in general inside of Crimea. A lot of these areas of Crimea are actually blind, and Ukraine is just able to fly these drones in and strike airfields. That's why we've been seeing the Kasha military airfield being attacked a lot recently. A lot of times aircraft being destroyed down there due to all these radars being destroyed by Ukraine. So once again, another major hit, and it's going to knock out this air defense system over here that was operating with this radar if that radar was destroyed. We'll wait for more details on that. Now, Igor Sushko, Russia. Ukrainian drone struck a strategic state reserve fuel depot located between Moscow and St. Petersburg and Bologoyev, I'm saying that right, in the Ver region. The drone struck a fuel tank but failed to ignite the fuel, or maybe the tank was empty. Kremlin authorities hushed up the incident. Yeah, multiple sources were talking about this attack on this fuel depot today. So far, no video footage, but confirmation of this attack where this strike was carried out. Going to be over here in the Ver region on the northern side of it, close to Moscow, just a little bit northwest of there. So we're still waiting for more details, but yeah, reports that allegedly a drone did strike a fuel tank, but allegedly no fire has broke out yet. We'll see if we get some damage to that facility or more reports later, but allegedly we did have a fuel depot being attacked. Now, Max 25, the Russians are already writing what they will do next, preparing the information space. Here's a report from TASS news agency out of Russia. That's going to be like their main state news. This is what they were saying on Telegram. The Zelensky regime is facing an inevitable. Kyiv is preparing for a staged operation in Poland involving a sabotage and reconnaissance group, SRG, consisting of alleged special forces personnel from Russia and Belarus, the SVR reported. It is possible that Kyiv's operation will involve a simulated attack on critical infrastructure in Poland to generate public outcry, the department noted. So yeah, this is actually the second time this week that we've seen reports of Russia talking about this. Their defense ministry is claiming that Ukraine is preparing some sort of operations or attacks onto NATO. We've been hearing just the other day, I think they were claiming that Ukraine was preparing to attack Romania, actually with drones. They were preparing to repair some of the Gerbera drones or Shahid drones, Garan type, that Russia uses inside of Ukraine, and then launch an attack onto Romania and say this was Russia that did this. Now they're claiming that Ukraine is preparing some sort of operation onto Poland to launch an attack or simulated attack onto critical infrastructure. So a lot of people would say that, this is Russia preparing this, that if they're claiming that Ukraine is preparing to do it, it's most likely something that Russia is preparing, that they're almost kind of projecting what they're going to do. But you guys can let me know what you think. But this is 2 times this week claims that, Ukraine is supposedly going to carry out some sort of act onto NATO. We'll have to see what's going to happen there. But yeah, it looks like we could see some sort of attack onto NATO here soon. We'll have to see what's going to happen. Now for Max 25, -1 Russian Grad MLRS. Okay, so multiple launch rocket system was allegedly destroyed. Towards the end of our videos, we've been talking a lot lately about Russian Grad systems that have been destroyed. Like almost 1 or 2 per day are being knocked out. Here's allegedly new video showing a strike on a Russian Grad position. Take a look.
Пизда БМ-ку въебала, вон взрыв какой. Осколки! Осколки летят нахуй! Вот такая вот нахуй у нас война.
All right, so partway into the video, you kind of hear what sounds like these munitions that were cooking off. So maybe this thing was packed with missiles or rockets, that was preparing to fire as it was hit. Still waiting for more confirmation on this video, but allegedly this was a Russian Grad multiple launch rocket system that was hit by Ukraine and destroyed. So if that was the case, very big hit by Ukraine. Now check out this video from Vicegrad24. An oil refinery in Samara has been covered with metal frames to protect it from Ukrainian drone attacks. The structures are meant to prevent strike UAVs from hitting storage tanks and key industrial facilities. So allegedly, I believe this video footage is coming out from the Kuibyshev oil refinery that has been attacked by Ukraine in the past. As far as we know, it is open right now for business, but you can see all these anti-drone nets and cages that are sitting over critical infrastructure on this facility. And this shows really, how scared Russia is of these drone attacks. They're doing whatever they can to really protect these facilities from being attacked by these drones because they don't have the ability to shoot down all these drones that are incoming into their territory. And this is causing, major havoc and troubles for the Russian economy and for the people there because there's fuel shortages going on inside of Russia. So yeah, we've been seeing this actually for over a year now that Russia's been constructing these anti-drone nets and cages, but they're continuing to do that to protect their oil facilities that continuously be attacked by Ukraine. Now status 6. The moment of one of Russian strikes with Shahed Grand-type long-range OWA UAVs in the Ukrainian city of Dnipro on Tuesday. According to Ukrainian emergency services, at least 12 people have been wounded as a result of today's attack. Yeah, this was a video coming out from the city of Dnipro in central Ukraine. A Russian Shahed or Grand-type drone slamming into a target over here. Take a look.
Ё-моё.
All right, so what we're hearing behind this story is this was actually like a neighborhood that was attacked. I don't think this was like a military target or anything like that. There was destruction to buildings. I've got some other videos I can show you guys, but very scary showing that drone slamming into something right there over those trees. Here's video footage now. Anton Gerashenko, massive Russian attack on Dnipro. There are fires in the city. Reportedly, there are casualties. So yeah, considering the fact that we're having reports this was some sort of massive attack, I'm thinking this was multiple Russian drones that were slamming into the city. We can see here, right in the middle of the city, all these cars parked at some sort of business or town hall or something like that, and lots of destruction right here in front of all these vehicles. So you can see right in the center of the town, it was attacked. And this is a city that we see frequently being attacked by the Russians. Here's one more video now. Kiev Post. A huge fire ripped through the central Dnipro, and Putin's forces launched yet another brutal attack. Local authorities confirmed there are civilian casualties. Rescue efforts are ongoing. So here's some more video footage coming out from Dnipro showing a major fire on top of a building. Fortunately, we can't really see what type of building it is that caught fire, but we can see the huge blaze from this drone strike from Russia. So absolutely brutal attack today on the city of Dnipro. Very sad to report. Here's another strike now from Vicegrad24. An entire family was killed in Russian drone strike on the Sumy region. A husband, wife, and their 2 sons, aged 4 and 6, died when a Russian UAV hit their home. According to AFU, the country was attacked overnight by 65 Russian drones, 46 of which were shot down. Yeah, this was allegedly some sort of apartment building, I believe, that was attacked by a Russian drone. Look at the devastation there on the top of the building, just completely wiped out here on the top. And yeah, allegedly an entire family losing their lives here. Very sad to report. Husband, wife, and their 2 sons, 4 and 6 years old, guys. Can you imagine that? That is just absolutely horrible to have to report this. And I really hate having to do this sometimes to share this information with you guys, but I want you guys to be aware of what's going on inside of Ukraine, especially when the Russians come out and they state things like, oh, we only go after, military targets inside of Ukraine. We clearly see this on a daily basis. Civilians being attacked inside of Ukraine, many of them losing their lives, just like this whole family here that was killed in this incident with this drone strike on this apartment building. Very sad news to report, guys. Thank you so much for being here. Now from current reports, just in, a large number of U.S. aerial refueling tankers that landed in the U.K. yesterday have now departed for Qatar, with at least 7 escorting fighter jets toward the Middle East. So we heard about this report actually yesterday that apparently there was like more than a dozen aerial refueling tankers that were heading from the U.S. over to Europe. Now apparently an update today, they're going from Europe over to the Middle East towards Qatar. So what's going on? Is the U.S. preparing to attack Iran again soon? I don't know what's going on here, but the Russians were reporting that yesterday, that allegedly the U.S. and Israel is preparing to strike Iran again. So maybe that's the case. That's why we're seeing all these aerial refuelers moving around right now. Maybe they're preparing for some sort of action in the Middle East. Not really sure yet. Still waiting for more details, but get ready for that just in case we happen to see tensions flare up in the Middle East once again. Now you're getting on it. Poland is preparing hospitals for war and training medical personnel for deployment in crisis situations and under combat conditions. Even staff training takes place in the hospital basement where non sterile conditions typical of wartime are simulated. The head of the military hospital in Lublin explained that every hospital must provide beds in case of war. The local administration is already taking care of this. Okay, so we heard this story actually from, was it France recently, I believe? Multiple countries inside of Europe are preparing their hospitals for war. Okay, so, we're continuing to hear this more and more every day that Europe is getting ready for war with Russia. Obviously, tensions are very high. Anything can really happen right now, and all of a sudden, we get a war that's breaking out between NATO and Russia. So, looks like Poland is getting ready, and considering the fact that they're right on the front lines if this war kicks off, I think it's smart for them to prepare for that. And I think considering the circumstances right now, everybody should be prepared for war in case it happens to break out. So it is good to see that Poland is getting ready with their hospitals. Now, NOAA reports this morning a Ukrainian Antonov AN-124 Ruslan, the world's heaviest cargo plane, landed at Ben Gurion Airport in Israel. It loaded an unmarked 40-foot container before taking off back to Europe. Similar containers have reportedly previously been spotted at Israeli Patriot SAM sites. Okay, so apparently a Ukrainian transport plane was showing up over here at Ben Gurion Airport in Israel, dropping off some sort of load here, this shipping container. And a lot of people are speculating on what this could possibly be. Now, we do know as of yesterday, Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, was stating that apparently the Israelis have supplied at least one Patriot air defense system over to Ukraine. So I'm wondering if this is maybe some sort of repayment to Israel. But again, what are they giving them? I was thinking maybe air defense systems, but we know that Ukraine really needs them. I can't see Ukraine giving away anything like that. So let me know what you guys think would be inside of this container here. And again, this is interesting because we're hearing that maybe potentially Israel's getting ready for another fight with Iran soon. Could that be a possibility? And maybe Ukraine sending something over here to help out the Israelis as maybe this war is going to kick back off again in the Middle East. We'll have to see what's going to happen. But let me know what you think on this story here. Now, Max 25 in Norway, a drone was spotted over a gas field in the North Sea area. Active Russian reconnaissance over strategically important objects in Norway has been going on for several days in a row. Yeah, so apparently we had a gas field, a drone actually that was kind of flying over one of these gas fields up near Norway again. And actually last night there wasn't too many reports of drones or anything like that over Denmark, which was reported numerous times, probably 4 or 5 times over the last week. But we did have reports of a drone over this gas field in the North Sea next to Norway last night. So yeah, we're still seeing some of these drones showing up over here, but it's interesting that the drone sightings are kind of slowing down now as we get closer to the EU summit that's supposed to begin tomorrow. So I thought that was very interesting. It definitely seems like whoever's doing this, they've got, all the knowledge. They know exactly what's going on over here in Europe, and they're doing these things right at the run-up of this major EU summit tomorrow, which is interesting because tomorrow they're supposed to be discussing closing the skies inside of Ukraine. Now, Savchenko Volodymyr. It is clear that drones in Poland and Estonia are the work of the Russians. We are still investigating whether this is intentional or not. But even if not, it is reckless and unacceptable, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said. So this was a statement from Mark Rutte today, stating that they believe that it's clear that the drones in Poland and Estonia are Russia doing this, okay? But they are stating that they're still investigating whether it's intentional or not. But he is saying that it is reckless and unacceptable. So interesting that does it really matter whether it's intentional or not? I mean, Russian drones inside of NATO airspace should not be a thing. But yeah, I would think that a lot of people believe that this was actually intentional coming from the Russians. But let me know what you guys think on his statement today. Now, Kiev Post. Sweden's defense ministry has denied reports that Gripen fighter jets have already been sent to Ukraine. The ministry said Stockholm and Kiev are engaged in a deep dialogue on the possible role of Gripen jets in Ukraine's air defense system, but stressed that no final decision has been made. Okay, this is completely contradictory to the reports we had yesterday that apparently Ukraine was receiving some of Sweden's Gripen fighter jets. We didn't know how many. We were hearing also that F-16s and also the Mirage fighter jets from France were allegedly going to be showing up inside of Ukraine also. So yeah, apparently Sweden's defense ministry claiming that there is no transfer of these Gripen fighter jets as of yet. Maybe they're just saying that. Who knows? I guess we'll find out once we see these things flying over Ukraine. That's probably when we'll have actual confirmation that Ukraine has received these. Now from Tomi. Satellite images show significant changes at two northern Russian air bases near Finland. Russia is concentrating Tu-22M3 and Tu-95M bombers at Alenia and other sites to keep them safe from Ukrainian drones and possible missiles. If Finland is such a big threat, why do that? Yeah, I thought this was interesting as well, that Russia is stationing a lot of their Tu-22s and Tu-95 strategic bombers at the Alenia airfield closer to Finland's border. We heard recently that a lot of these were actually transferred to Russia's Far East, and the Russians do this to keep them safe from Ukrainian drone attacks. And then whenever they want to attack Ukraine, they'll just bring them a little bit closer a day before, launch the strikes, and then go back home. But why would they want to store these so close to NATO's border? NATO could easily launch a strike and take all these out very quickly. And it makes me think that they're not so concerned about Finland, obviously. They're more concerned about Ukraine's drones than they are concerned about NATO attacking their air bases. So, yeah, new satellite image showing all these things lined up on the runway over here at the Alenia airfield close to Finland's border inside of Russia. Now from next to 4 EU countries paid Russia more for gas than they spent on aid to Kiev. Can you guess which ones? France, Belgium, Spain, and the Netherlands together paid Russia 34.3 billion euros for LNG, that's liquefied natural gas, from 2022 to June 2025, more than their combined aid to Ukraine over the same period of 21.2 billion euros. This is stated in a Greenpeace study titled "The LNG Trap: Europe's Fossil Gas Dependence on Russia and the United States." According to the organization, the main supplier to the EU remains Yamal LNG, which earned around $40 billion from 2022 to 2024. Okay, so we continue to hear that, obviously Europe is still buying Russian gas, liquefied natural gas. We've been hearing that they're supposed to be trying to phase that out by the beginning of 2027, so in like another year from now. But that's still a ways down the road, right? And obviously, Europe needs to stop buying Russian gas. I mean, they are funding both sides of this conflict. They're giving Ukraine weaponry, and at the same time, they're funding the Russian military by buying this gas. So that's why the U.S. is putting so much pressure on the EU right now. We'll see what happens with this story, but obviously that's not good to hear, right? That Europe is obviously financing this war for Russia as well. Now, from next day, the EU will allocate about $2 billion for drones for Ukraine. Funded by frozen Russian assets, Ursula von der Leyen announced a plan. Roughly 2 billion euros will go to production and delivery of attack drones for Kiev. The funds to be raised through mechanisms tied to frozen Russian assets. Okay, so very big news here. The EU is going to be allocating 2 billion euros for Ukraine for the production of drones using frozen Russian assets. This was just being announced today. Very good to see. They'll continue supplying Ukraine with more drones that they can use to continue striking Russia's oil refineries and critical Russian military targets. Now let's talk about this major meeting today between all these generals and admirals that met in Quantico, Virginia. So here's a report from Ozen Defender. Almost all the generals and admirals in the United States Armed Forces seated at Marine Corps Base Quantico in Virginia ahead of today's speech by President Donald J. Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Here's just a photo coming out to show you guys all these admirals and generals sitting here. I was hearing that there could have been up to like 900 of them present at this auditorium today. So very cool to see them all here. We're going to go over some of the details and some of the things that were spoken about here at this event. Now another report from next breaking. A high-level military meeting convened by the Pentagon has begun in the U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is delivering a speech. Says, quote, "We have the strongest and deadliest army on the planet. No one can touch us. If our enemies dare to challenge us, they will be crushed with the brutality, precision, and ferocity of the Department of War." Hegseth then turned to gender issues, making it clear that transgender people will no longer serve in the U.S. Army. No men in dresses, no more worship of climate change, no gender delusions. We're done with this crap. So kind of also commenting about the political changes within the military over the last few years. So apparently they're getting rid of a lot of that, but I want you guys to see this statement real quick, about 12 seconds.
Should our enemies choose foolishly to challenge us, they will be crushed by the violence, precision, and ferocity of the War Department. Should our
Okay, so we know that the Department of Defense recently had its names changed to the Department of War, and that was a lot of talk today, pretty much warning all these generals and admirals, we need to prepare for war, peace through strength. We'll be talking about that as we move forward, but Pete Hegseth just displaying a lot of strength here at this meeting, talking to these generals and letting them know we need to get ready for war and prepare for any combat in the future. So just huge statement from him today. Here's a few more things now. Ozen Defender, U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth tells admirals and generals this morning in Quantico, Virginia, to ensure peace, we must prepare for war, stating that the only mission of the Department of War will be war fighting, preparing for war and preparing to win, unrelenting and uncompromising in that pursuit. So, as you can see, Pete Hegseth just displaying strength here and letting these admirals and generals know that they need to be ready for war. That's why they changed this whole department to the Department of War and no longer the Defense, that they need to be ready for war fighting and preparing to win any fight that comes to them in the future. Now from the Ukrainian Review, Hegseth says it's unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the Pentagon. You need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. No more beards or long hair. If you want a beard, you can join Special Forces. If not, then shave. We don't have a military full of Nordic pagans. So it looks like to me like Pete Hegseth just kind of whipping all these generals and admirals into shape and letting them know that, this is very serious. It's the military. We can't have beards. We can't have people that are overweight. We need to get people in tip-top shape. Kind of seems like they're just kind of trying to, get the military in order here is what it seems like to me. But let me know what you think on these statements today. Here's another one, Ozen Defender. U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth speaking in front of nearly all admirals and generals in the United States Armed Forces this morning at Marine Corps Base Quantico. We are overhauling an Inspector General process, the IG that has been weaponized, putting complainers, ideologues, and poor performers in the driver's seat. We're doing the same with the equal opportunity and military equal opportunity policies, the EO and MEO at our department. No more frivolous complaints, no more anonymous complaints, no more repeat complaints, no more smearing reputations, no more endless waiting, no more legal limbo, no more sidetracking careers, no more walking on eggshells. Hegseth is currently under investigation by the Pentagon Inspector General due to his conduct during the Signalgate controversy in June. So if you guys remember that story, the whole Signalgate thing, where apparently Pete Hegseth, I think J.D. Vance and other top leaders out of the Trump administration, even some top military commanders, were discussing strike plans in the Middle East. And apparently that information got exposed, and these leaders were not supposed to be discussing this through this Signal app. And it got exposed pretty much to the entire world. Everybody knew what they were talking about these strike plans for the military. So he's obviously been under investigation by the Inspector General for that. And apparently they're now doing an overhaul of that, which is very interesting. Some people might think that they're trying to do that to protect Pete Hegseth, but you guys can let me know how you feel on that story there too. Now from Special Person Cat, Trump, I'm so disappointed with President Putin. I thought he would get this thing over with. He should have had this war done in a week. And I said to him, you don't look good. You've been at 4 years fighting a war that should have taken a week. Are you a paper tiger? And it's a shame. Yeah, Trump did come out with a few statements today. I want to show you guys this one here, about 20 seconds. Take a look.
So disappointed in President Putin. I thought he would get this thing over with. He should have had that war done in a week. And I said to him, you don't look good. You're 4 years fighting a war that should have taken a week. Are you a paper tiger? And it's a shame. So disappointed in President.
All right, so this is actually the second time that Trump has come out calling Russia a paper tiger, that Russia's moving so slow on the front line right now. They're spending millions of dollars pretty much every single day lobbing missiles and drones into Ukraine, and yet on the front line, they're not really advancing. So he came out again saying he's disappointed with Putin and that it's a shame that this war is not done and over with and should have been a long time ago. Now, Savchenko Volodymyr, Trump also said we're 25 years ahead of Russia and China in submarines. Russia is second, China's third, but they're coming up. In 5 years, they'll be equal, they're coming up. We will upgrade our nuclear and hope we will never have to use it. So Trump also told these generals and admirals that they'll be upgrading their nuclear forces also, especially with their submarines, that apparently they're 25 years ahead of Russia and China, but Russia and China are starting to catch up now, and pretty soon they'll be equal in capabilities. So yeah, just not a whole lot coming out from Trump today. He made a few statements, but nothing too constructive from what we saw. Just wanted to share a few things that he stated today. Now, Noel reports Russia launched 65 attack drones overnight. Shahid, Gerbera, and others from Bryansk, Orel, Kursk, Milarovo, Primorsko-Akhtarsk, and occupied Crimea. Ukrainian air defense, electronic warfare units, and mobile fire groups shot down or suppressed 46 drones across the north, south, east, and center. 19 drones hit targets at 6 locations, with debris following in 2 more. All right, so 65 drones going into Ukraine overnight. Not very many compared to what we saw just last week. We were seeing like more than 100 per night. And yesterday, there was actually only about 32 that were fired into Ukraine. So it looks like the Russians, maybe they're running out of drones. They don't have too many right now, but we're really not seeing a whole lot of major attacks over the past couple days. We know they launched a huge attack over the weekend. I think it was around 500 or 600 drones. So maybe they're kind of low supply right now. That's probably why we're not seeing too many. But good to see about 46 out of 65 were shot down and destroyed. Now for Kyiv Independent, these are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of September 30th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. In our final updates here, Russia's losses as of September 30th, 970 troops, 1 AFV, 90 vehicles and fuel tanks, 4 tanks, 27 artillery systems, 301 UAVs, 1 MLRS, and it looks like 1 helicopter. Okay, so this helicopter is going to be that Mi-8 that was taken out yesterday by a Ukrainian FPV drone. That was very big news. A $500 drone destroyed a $16 million helicopter. Isn't that nuts? And then also 1 multiple launch rocket system. Maybe that's one from that video that we had for you guys today. But again, we've been seeing about 1 or 2 of those per day being destroyed. Also 27 artillery systems, about average numbers there. 4 tanks, 1 AFV, still very low numbers we see there typically. Vehicles and fuel tanks, about average also. And then troop numbers we've been seeing kind of climbing up a little bit closer to like 1,000, 1,100 recently. Still a little bit higher than average. We've usually been seeing about 850 to 900 there. So yeah, not too much more, but about average numbers. I want to thank you guys very much for tuning in for today's update on September 30th, 2025. And I hope you all have a great day out there today. Let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.